Trigger warning. This episode contains discussions of child sexual abuse, internet stalking, and violence, which may be disturbing or triggering for some listeners. Please take care while listening and feel free to skip this episode or step away if needed. Your well-being comes first. Hi, and welcome to Wrongful, a podcast where we look at cases of potential wrongful convictions. Follow along as we introduce you to our new case, the charging of Aaron Spencer. Aaron Spencer, Episode 1, Not Who, But Why. As moms, this case hit us hard, right in the heart. We're not violent people, but when it comes to protecting our kids, there are lines that if crossed could push anyone to react in ways they normally wouldn't. What made this even worse was watching a family go through their worst nightmare, only to then face an overzealous prosecution by the very system that should have protected them. In today's episode of Wrongful, we're diving into the ongoing case of Aaron Spencer. He's been charged with the murder of 67-year-old police officer Michael Fossler. Now, this case is different from others we've covered so far. This isn't about someone claiming they didn't do it. We're not going to spend time combing through evidence to figure out if Aaron committed the act because we already know that he did. On the morning of October 8th, 2024, Aaron called 911 and reported that Michael Fossler was dead on the side of the road and that he had no choice. Aaron Spencer is the guy. He's the one who pulled the trigger. So the real question here isn't who did it, it's why. And that's where this case gets complicated. Some might wonder, could there ever be a reason that justifies shooting and killing someone? If any case edges near a justification, it's this one. Lonoke County is a quiet area in central Arkansas, and it's where this story unfolds. The Spencer family had recently moved there from Florida. Heather Spencer, the heart of the family, wanted to be close to her aging father and help care for him. She was married to 36-year-old Aaron Spencer, a combat veteran who served in the 82nd Airborne and completed tours in Iraq. Together with their son and daughter, Heather and Aaron settled into what looked like an idyllic farm life. They raised turkeys, chickens, and other animals, grew organic flowers, baked sourdough bread, and sold their goods locally. They even homeschooled their kids. Their life was quiet, private, and grounded in simplicity. But all that would change. Their world would be completely shattered in 2024 when their lives collided with a man named Michael Fossler. Michael Fossler also had a background in service. He spent time in the military and went on to become a police chief in Hamlet, Indiana. Later, he worked as a school resource officer. He and his wife raised 2 daughters before eventually relocating to Lonoke County, Arkansas. His wife passed away from cancer in 2023. In our research, we came across several of Michael Fossler's social media accounts. Some of his interests seemed fairly typical, things like woodworking and fishing lures as shown on his Pinterest page. But what stood out most was his X account, where we found a troubling pattern of sexually charged comments on photos of young women. Hidden in plain sight. Unfortunately, it's all too common. The most dangerous of predators are the ones who blend in. They earn your trust, possibly seeming like a grandfather figure. According to RAINN, 93% of juvenile victims know their predator. Of these, 59% were acquaintances, with 34% being family members. We weren't able to verify the exact circumstances of how the Spencer's 13-year-old daughter came to know Fossler, but like far too many stories, he was someone trusted, someone with ties to family friends. Heather Spencer shared what happened in a heartfelt social media post. What happened to our child starting in the spring of 2024 when she was just 13 was horrifying and traumatic for all who loved her. She is a quiet, homeschooled child who at the time spent more days than not helping care for her dying grandpa. It was hard work, and when presented with the opportunity to spend time in a safe place, I allowed her to take a much-needed break on days when we weren't busy, to be with friends that were family. Deep in my soul, they were family, and I trusted that she was safe. She wasn't. Heather goes on to explain that Fossler began grooming her daughter via text. In July of 2024, a family member came forward after their daughter had confided to them that she had been raped. The family would find out that the man had assaulted her multiple times. The family contacted law enforcement, and they were assured that they would take these charges seriously. Fossler was arrested in June of 2024 and faced a total of 43 charges, including 36 counts of pandering or possessing media depicting sexually explicit conduct involving a child, 2 counts of sexual assault in the 4th degree, 2 counts of sexual indecency with a child, 2 counts of internet stalking of a child, and 1 count of computer child pornography. Fossler pled not guilty and waived his rights to an appearance. These were serious charges that would have had him facing what for him would have been a life sentence if convicted. However, Circuit Court Judge Barbara Elmore set his bond at $50,000 with no supervision. Heather Spencer said in a social media post that they were not privy to this fact. Even though they anticipated his release, they had hoped that the pending felony charges and a no-contact order would be enough to keep him away from their child. Unfortunately, they were wrong. While the family put their daughter into therapy and tried to start the healing process, Fossler, who was out on bail, would once again enter their lives. Just after 1 a.m. on October 8th, the Spencers woke up to the sound of their dog barking. Aaron went to his daughter's room to check on her and found that she was missing. Immediately, Aaron was worried that Fossler was involved. Heather called 911 and reported her daughter missing. Meanwhile, Aaron got in his vehicle to search for his daughter. Heather then said she heard from her sister-in-law, who sent her a picture of a Cash App payment from DoorDash. It was sent from Fossler to their daughter a day or two prior. In that moment, Heather realized that her daughter may have been taken. She tells 911 that she thinks Fossler is involved. She further commented in a social media post that while she was saying this in her head, she was thinking, "I'll probably never see her again." She screamed in horror and began to desperately pray for a miracle. And a miracle happened. By an act of God, Aaron was able to locate his daughter in a vehicle with none other than Michael Fossler. In his affidavit, Aaron describes what happened next. Aaron saw Fossler's white F-150 turn onto Highway 236 east towards Fossler's home. Aaron chased Fossler's vehicle, flashing his lights and honking his horn in an attempt to get Fossler to pull over. When Fossler did not pull over, Aaron rammed his truck into Fossler, which caused Fossler's truck to go into the ditch. Aaron got out of his car with a firearm and proceeded to tell Fossler to get out and lie down in the ditch. He saw his daughter attempt to escape the vehicle, but it appeared that Fossler was trying to grab her and prevent her from leaving. He also noticed that as Fossler exited his vehicle, he had something in his hand. I can't imagine what was going through Aaron's mind at that moment. The man who had preyed on his daughter had now kidnapped her. She was the only witness against him, putting her in the hands of someone desperate with everything to lose. It's not a stretch to assume Fossler's intentions were anything but good. Whether he planned to silence her permanently or victimize her again, no one could know for sure. But as a parent, that's not a risk you could afford to take. So when Aaron saw something in Fossler's hand, it's easy to understand why he feared for his daughter's life, and possibly his own. As a combat veteran, Aaron had been trained to assess threats and respond in an instant. When Fossler lunged at him, yelling, "Fuck you," Aaron reacted. He fired his weapon, hitting Fossler in the chest, arm, and abdomen, and then jumped on him and struck him with his pistol. Only after subduing him did Aaron call 911 again to report Fossler's location. Police arrived and took Aaron into custody. He posted bail the following day. In a motion filed by Aaron's attorneys in June of 2025, more details about his arrest that day came to light. At the scene, an officer initially placed Aaron in the back of a police cruiser, then removed him, and later put him back in the opposite side of the vehicle. When Aaron was placed back in the car, he noticed a glass pipe and immediately informed the officers that it had already been there. Spencer denied ownership of the pipe and requested a drug screening to prove that he had not used drugs. The defense later filed motions to exclude the glass pipe from being used as evidence. They argued it had no relevance to the case and amounted to character evidence, which could unfairly bias the jury against Aaron. His attorneys also emphasized that Aaron continued to deny any type of connection to the pipe. Several months later, the defense filed another motion, this time revealing that the DNA test on the pipe excluded Aaron entirely. So how did it end up in the police car? The situation raises serious questions, and at this point, one can only speculate about how and why it was there. After hearing of Aaron's arrest, the local community was outraged. They felt that the Spencer family had tried to do things the proper way and relied on the state to do their job to protect their daughter. Aaron Spencer was put in this position because of the state's weak handling of the Fossler case. What parent wouldn't have done the same thing in his situation? That sentiment is what we have seen over and over again in social media comments and in examining our own hearts. More information was coming to the Fosslers as well. Heather Spencer would later post this on her Facebook page. We've received numerous stories of other victims that received no justice after this man attacked them. The system failed over and over to put away a predator. Everywhere this man went, he preyed on weak young girls. The Spencer family further shared their displeasure in the handling of their case by the sheriff's office. Heather Spencer is quoted as saying, "Some things we will never know, but we know the police department afforded this predator privacy they did not give our family, including posting our home address. I'm deeply offended by the way this was handled by the county office." In another statement, she added, "We've gotten a clear picture of a predator who continuously worked with children and preyed on young girls. This man was chief of police in Indiana and a resource officer, giving us a better idea of why the Lonoke County courts have been protecting him and going after my husband." In an effort to ease public concern, Lonoke County Sheriff John Staley released a statement.
"I'm your Lonoke County Sheriff John Staley. In the early hours of Tuesday, October 8th, Lonoke County deputies responded to a report of a missing juvenile. While en route, got a call of a shooting. After consultation with the prosecuting attorney, an arrest was made with a preliminary charge of first-degree murder. Arkansas state law provides guidance on when and how charges are filed in criminal cases. As this is an ongoing investigation, only limited details can be released. As your sheriff, it is our duty to conduct a thorough and factual investigation. Law enforcement does not file charges. We gather evidence and submit a case to the prosecutor, who will then decide whether or not to file charges. Currently, official charges have not been filed. I have not, nor will I, advocate for any specific charge. This is a tragic situation, and my thoughts and prayers are with all those involved. We will continue our investigation, submit the findings to the prosecutor for review."
One notable detail from his statement was the mention of the preliminary charge filed against Aaron, first-degree murder. That charge was determined after law enforcement shared their findings with prosecutor Chuck Graham. For the state to pursue a charge of first-degree murder, they would need to believe Aaron acted with premeditation. But based on the facts, that doesn't seem to align. When Aaron first learned of the abuse months earlier, he didn't retaliate. He put his trust in the legal system and let the authorities handle it. It wasn't until his daughter was kidnapped that the situation escalated. Aaron had no way of knowing that Foster would attempt to abduct his daughter that night, nor would it be reasonable to assume that Aaron would allow her to leave with Foster just to create an opportunity for retaliation. Some have commented that this is a case of vigilante justice, even some agreeing that vigilante justice was warranted. However, we disagree that this situation fits that label. Under Arkansas self-defense law, a person is justified in using deadly force if they reasonably believe that the other person is 1. Committing or about to commit a felony involving physical force or violence, 2. Using or about to use unlawful deadly physical force, or 3. Imminently endangering the person's life or about to victimize them as part of an ongoing pattern of domestic abuse. From the evidence in this case, we believe Aaron had reasonable grounds to believe his daughter was in immediate danger and that Foster intended to harm her. That belief led him to ram Foster's vehicle to stop his escape. We also believe that Aaron acted out of a reasonable fear for his life and his daughter's when he saw something in Foster's hand and was suddenly lunged at. His reaction, pulling the trigger, was consistent with someone responding to what they believed was a deadly threat. On November 27th, prosecutors officially charged Aaron with second-degree murder and commission of a felony with a firearm. This charge is punishable to up to 30 years in prison. The difference between first and second-degree murder is that while first degree shows deliberate and premeditated actions, second degree shows indifference to human life. The firearm charge is an enhancement which adds 15 years to the sentence if found guilty. We believe Aaron was put in a situation where he needed to act to save his daughter's life and possibly his own. Yet, the same agency who failed to protect them are now the ones charging him. Aaron's wife posted this statement on her social media. "It's bewildering, isn't it? To think you could become a target of the county for protecting your child. To think the system put in place to protect its citizens is being used to victimize them." This case continued to draw public outrage, including from some large media networks. People from all across the country were stunned that a father was being charged for defending his daughter from a known predator. Donations quickly poured in to help Aaron cover legal expenses. Aaron hired attorneys Michael Kaiser and Aaron Casanelli and pled not guilty to the charges. The defense also filed a motion indicating their intent to raise justification as a defense, which is essentially claiming that Aaron acted in self-defense or in defense of others. His attorney had this to say following the hearing.
He was absolutely fearful for her life. Not to mention that she had been repeatedly the subject of multiple assaults, violent assaults on a child. What are we doing here? We feel very confident that this community is going to come to Aaron's side because every one of them would have done the same thing for their child or their neighbor's child, a member of their family.
The state would also have comment, with prosecutor Chuck Graham having this to say.
I had a lot to say about the situation and me, but what's being put out there is not the whole story. And ethically, I can't go much further than that.
Aaron Casanelli also mentioned this in regards to the public.
We look forward to the public being involved in this process, certainly more so than they were today.
There would be a wrench coming their way in terms of a gag order. A gag order is the judge's direction that prohibits individuals involved in the case from publicly discussing the case or certain aspects of it. On December 4th, prosecution filed a motion requesting such an order. They asked the judge to bar Aaron Spencer's attorney and anyone else from speaking about the case publicly. Among reasons cited were the media attention the case had drawn and the public statement made by attorney Aaron Casanelli, which we just heard. Spencer's attorney filed a 19-page response to the prosecution's motion. The defense claimed that the gag order would violate their client's constitutional rights. Judge Elmore took less than 30 minutes to review the defense's response before she granted the gag order. Not only did she approve the gag order, she also sealed the entire case file, despite neither side requesting that action. The gag order itself was notably broad and vague. As a result, media coverage came to a halt and the case quickly faded from the public eye. You may have noticed that the judge presiding over Aaron Spencer's case, Judge Beverly Elmore, is the same judge who handled the sexual abuse charges against Michael Fossler. She's also the one who set what many call a ridiculously low bail, which allowed Fossler the opportunity to kidnap the Spencer's daughter, an act which led directly to the events of October 8th. This raises serious concerns. We find ourselves asking, how is this not a conflict of interest? It's hard not to question whether Judge Elmore, facing tremendous backlash over her role in what happened, could truly remain impartial in overseeing Aaron's trial. And then there's the gag order, a move that, intentionally or not, served her best interest in protecting herself from criticism and blame. The defense pushed the matter to the Supreme Court of Arkansas. While only 1% of cases are reviewed by the Supreme Court, in February of 2025, the Supreme Court agreed to review the gag order issued by the Lonoke County Circuit Court. The oral argument was scheduled for April 10, 2025. Each side was given 20 minutes to present their case. Defense attorney Casanelli gave the following remarks.
Aaron Spencer is a father and a husband. His daughter was sexually assaulted, severely, by a man named Michael Fossler. Michael Fossler was arrested and charged with over 40 criminal offenses relating to his behavior against Mr. Spencer's child. He was released by the Circuit Court of Lonoke County with very little restriction.
So, counsel, if I can interrupt you right there, just a factual clarification. Was it the same judge who issued the gag order was the judge in that case?
Yes, sir, and thank you for that question. You caught exactly where I was going. It was the same circuit court and the same prosecutor who participated in Michael Fossler's criminal proceeding, and that's important in additional respects. There is no public record of his appearance that I can find before the circuit court. There's no record of what bond the state sought, why the court imposed such a low bond, why there were no restrictions or supervision as to his conduct. And of course, that led to him taking Aaron Spencer's daughter in the middle of the night to continue to rape her.
The fact that Judge Elmore presided over both Fossler's case and Aaron's current case was not lost on Supreme Court Justice Nicholas Bronny. He continued to speak about the public interest in this case.
Aaron Spencer may not have taken so much issue with this gag order if it didn't seem like this entire proceeding and the entire proceeding of Michael Fossler were being conducted in secret. And the public, members of Lonoke County, have a great interest in knowing how this happened and knowing why its public are making the decisions that they are.
Assistant Attorney General Joseph Carl Lubke had this to say in response.
Here today on behalf of the respondent, the state of Arkansas. The circuit court's gag order in this case was an appropriate exercise of its discretion that helps achieve its primary constitutional duty to ensure a fair trial occurs in this case. Justice is done.
Justice Bronny responded to Lubke with this.
You jump from one point to the other. I guess where I'm confused is I'm not aware of a case that says you have a right to the state or anybody else, a right to a trial without any publicity, which almost seems like what happened here. The circuit court decided there should not be any publicity. Instead, your right is to an impartial jury.
On May 29, 2025, the Arkansas Supreme Court would rule to vacate the gag order.
The circuit court's gag order is far too broad and too restrictive of speech protected by the First Amendment, Article 2, Section 6 of the Arkansas Constitution. It is also impermissibly vague. Further, the order was entered without the requisite findings discussed above and wholly without factual basis. Therefore, we hold that the circuit court's order constitutes a plain, manifest, clear, and gross abuse of discretion for which there is no other adequate remedy. Accordingly, we issue a writ of certiorari and vacate the order.
Justice Nicholas J. Bronny would further give opinion in saying,
public officials aren't immune from public criticism, judges and prosecutors included. The same circuit court that issued the gag order here also granted Michael Fossler's release on bail. It's that decision to release a predator who repeatedly violated the defendant's child on a low bond that set off a chain of events that led to a fatal confrontation that's the subject of this case. And it's that criticism that the state claimed and the circuit court effectively concluded justified gagging the defendant, his lawyers, and others.
He also goes further to say,
the repeated attempts to veil these proceedings in secrecy can only breed ignorance and distrust of the courts, and suspicion concerning the competence and impartiality of the entire criminal justice system. Remedying that danger requires strong medicine, and I'd apply it.
Whether strong medicine is to be applied has yet to be seen. As of today, Judge Elmore is still on the case with the first pretrial hearing to take place on August 8th. The 5-day trial is scheduled to begin on September 22nd. And while the family is no longer bound by the gag order, the media attention that they once had has all but disappeared. Media attention can be a double-edged sword. We know it can sometimes be damaging for defendants. Stories get sensationalized, narratives get twisted, and public opinion can turn unfairly. But there's also good that can come from it. When a case is allowed to be talked about, it brings awareness, and awareness leads to support. Hiding a case from the public view doesn't just shield it from scrutiny, it also prevents people from understanding what's happening and showing up in ways that matter. We saw this with the recent Karen Reed case. Public attention brought massive support, and that kind of visibility can make a real difference, especially when it comes to legal expenses, which can financially ruin someone even if they're acquitted. Accessible trials also provide a level of accountability. When the public is watching, it becomes harder for corruption or misconduct to hide in the shadows. And as a famous lawyer once said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. There has to be a balance. The media shouldn't be a weapon, but when used responsibly, it can be a tool for truth, justice, and support. We've chosen to cover this case on Wrongful because we believe these charges are wrong. This is a case where the Spencer family was victimized by a predator and trusted that the authorities would stop it once and for all. But the authorities failed them, and they put them in an impossible situation. Now, instead of healing from this tragedy, they are being re-victimized by the government that was supposed to protect them. We can only think of the trauma sustained by this young girl and the innocence taken from her, and now having to worry about losing her father as well. On the Give Send Go fundraiser, a family member wrote, "The Spencers have a lot of trauma to work through. They've been spending hundreds of dollars a week on different therapies for their daughter and themselves, all suffering with severe PTSD from the events that have transpired." If you'd like to help the family financially, we will link the family's Give Send Go fundraiser in our show notes. You can also help by sharing this case with your friends. Corruption and injustice only succeed when we, the people, stop holding them accountable. To stay updated on the case, there is also a Facebook group, Support Aaron Spencer, where updates are shared regularly. We'll also continue to follow this case and update on what transpires through our podcast and on our social media. Bye everyone, and thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and want to catch our next episode, Please make sure to follow Wrongful on all of your favorite podcast platforms, and don't forget to rate us. We would also love it if you would follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X under Wrongful Pod. Keep the fun going in between episodes by joining our Wrongful Podcast group on Facebook to see evidence, discuss episodes, and more.